Brother Will, we are live.
Brother Rich, how you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing better than I deserve, to quote our dear
Awesome.
friend Dave Ramsey.
Yes, Dave Ramsey.
My
A
fellow
love-hate
Tennessean.
relationship with his philosophies.
Yes, sir. Got a damn good show for you today. I was looking through the slides and most of it was Greek to me, so I can't wait to hear your analysis.
All right.
But before we get
Just
into
waiting
it,
for
my
you to
dear
say most of it just like total junk. Why are you doing this, Wood?
not at all.
That would
I
have been
know
funny though, really.
well, in the green room, we talked about K-shaped recovery, and I know we've talked about that before on the show. People that are normally tune in will have heard that phrase a few times, and you're going to explain to it the relevancy today. But before we get into that, I want to tell you that you're watching the American Warrior Show, the podcast of the American Warrior Society, and I am joined with Will Wood, my dear friend, who's going to give us thoughtful analysis. And you would say, I don't understand, Rich. You and Will are shooters, grapplers, jiu-jitsu guys, and yet here we are once again talking about the economy and finances. Please explain that to the new viewers.
Absolutely. So welcome back, everybody. And if you're new, I'll hit the spring on my microphone thing here to welcome you in. The reason we talk about this is it's fun to talk about, the guns, the jits, the knife work, the hand to hand, all that stuff. It's fun and it's certainly critical to the safety of you and your family. However, part of protecting and providing for your family is also the finances of life. It's just a hard, cold reality. So we look at that to better prepare ourselves for these things that are coming. If you know protect your pile of cash and your assets and build that, well, then you have resources you can use when times get hard to provide for your family the basic needs of life, but also have the opportunity to take advantage of great training opportunities like is coming up soon with you, correct, Rich?
Yes, the high risk environment course. That's kind of built around a course I went to a long time ago, a high risk personnel course, but we've added some different things into the curriculum. Yes, it's going to have a 2-day shooting package with low light, but it's also going to have a full 1-day law self defense level 1 clinic. It's going to give you everything you need to know to make a wise decision if it comes to it on the street. Here, I don't know if I sent you that, Will, but we had a shooting in Main Street right on a bunch of guys fighting right in the middle of Main Street, right in front of the courthouse. And it was ironically 4 veterans.
Really?
One was an amputee, and he was, I guess, mentally disturbed homeless person who happens to be a vet, lost a limb, and he's flipping the American flag off and flipping off our war memorial downtown. And 3 veterans took umbrage with it. They're all middle-aged men. A fight ensues. The one-legged vet gets the better of one of the men. He goes back to his truck, comes back with a gun, and points it in his face and shoots him dead.
Wow.
So the guy's that's premeditated murder. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. And I'm sure in his mind he thought, I'm doing the right thing. I'm standing up for America, or whatever the hell he thought he was doing.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay for that. You're going to die in prison someday, my friend. So this is why we include a full 1-day law of self-defense curriculum into our high-risk environment course. If you want to check out more about that, I've got a link in today's show notes. If the link is broken, go to shooting-performance.com. If you'd like to find out about becoming a member of our self-preservation community, because one of the things you won't find in the training vault is all this information that Will dispenses for free every Monday morning, talking about the economy and finances and taking care of your family. And with that, my friend, I think we should welcome some people on.
I think so too. I see Scott's on from Michigan, coin number 2049. Bruce, good to see you again this morning, sir. Coin 481 from Michigan. And Will Rhodes is on from the great state of Missouri, coin number 2269. I'd like to add a little something to your what you brought about the legal stuff. I just saw there was a case in Colorado, and I'm very fuzzy on the details. Just read a couple of headlines, not very knowledgeable on it. But the upshot of it is a gentleman was at home one night. Some people were trying to steal his car. He went out, confronted them, and killed them. And I saw the headlines. He spent 54 years in prison for that. And I was speaking with someone when I read that, and they were like, "Well, they were trying to steal his car." And I was like, well, to my knowledge, outside of the great state of Texas, it is illegal to use deadly force to prevent property theft. And I assume I've always assumed the Texas thing went back to cattle. I don't know that for a fact, but I've just always assumed that either that or it's just Texas.
It's just Texas. Andrew Bronca, who literally wrote the book, The Law of Self-Defense, attorney Andrew Bronca, we had on a very popular show. If you go back and watch, I think it's got thousands of views. The Apple River stabbing
up in my neck of the woods.
case. Yeah, up in your neck of the woods. But now in Texas, Andrew Bronca talks about there was one case where a guy runs up, snatches the chain off the man's wife. The husband pulls out a gun, shoots him dead, no charges, acting in accordance with Texas law. Now, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then you got to survive the civil suit too, which is a lot lower threshold. So
over a chain, let it go.
Or in this case, in Colorado, over a car. I mean, I like my truck, but I really like not living in a cage too.
Yeah.
So but if you don't have that knowledge going in, and then my wife and I were talking about later, and she's like, that's why you have to make those decisions ahead of time. You know, I live out here in the sticks, same as you do. And I wake up in the middle of the night, somebody breaking into my truck. I'm going to stay inside the house. Take the truck. There's insurance. I really don't care that much. It's a nice truck. There are other Sierras, half-ton Sierras with Duramaxes in the world. It just really doesn't matter that much.
That's why we have insurance, folks. I mean, it's not worth. You might think, well, it's. I don't have a problem killing over my truck, but okay, I get that. Don't really have much moral qualms with that either. One less scumbag. However, I'm like you, Will. I don't want to die in a cage someday.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
No.
And we're always, and let's face it, this is a little bit of the type A male personality for the most part. We always assume we're going to win. What if you go there and you don't see his buddy?
Yeah, we did that bump in the night show. I rolled outside and somebody was trying to steal my catalytic converter. That was, going on 6 years now. And caught some scumbag crawling out from underneath my truck, and I was terrified of he had come with somebody else. So you never know. It's dark. It's like 9:30 at night.
Yep.
You just don't know.
Yep, for sure. It just isn't worth it over a piece of property.
No.
So watching your kids get raised through a glass wall, not worth it.
No thanks.
So, all right. On to this stuff. Start with our fear ingredient index, currently at 61. It slid down a little bit. The market has jumped up quite a bit Friday. I'm expecting this index to jump up this morning. Powell spoke Friday at Jackson Hole as part of their annual retreat there, said some things the market liked. We're going to get into a few of those things. What he said was really wonky and technical. Talked about bringing back fate, which we're going to talk about here a little later in the show. And fate was Fugazi the first time around, and I think it's Fugazi this time around too. But I want to talk about Walmart reported earnings last week. Had their first miss, and I believe it was 3 years. Kind of a trivia point. But here's what I do want to pull out of this. Their total revenues were up. We're just looking at the column on the left, the dark blue. And the reason for that is the CC is just constant currency because they operate all over the world. So they just normalize it, I presume, to the US dollar. So because what I want to get isn't these exact numbers. You'll see the revenue went up 4.8%, but their operating income went down. Now, for the record, I'm not trying to cherry pick here. The adjusted for constant currency one, you'll see did go up. I think that has to do with the currency differences because the dollar weakened. So I think it has to do with that. And without belaboring the entire earnings report, you'll notice that their revenues went up, but their operating income, and there's different types of income here within a company like that, their operating income went down. Now, they blend this off on some insurance costs that came up, and because they self-insure, this is common for a lot of large companies. They will self-insure. Rich Brown has a policy, healthcare policy through company XYZ. It's a large company, and you got your max out of pocket, you got your deductibles, all that stuff. It's very common for large companies to self-insure for, say, the first $50,000 of a person or family, they actually pay that out of pocket. And that same company that you see as your insurance company administers that for that company. And then above $50,000, the company has an insurance policy that kicks in and pays however it pays those bills there. So the point is they had these expenses that they blame this off on. What I'm going to be interested in seeing going forward is how tariffs hit. Now, China, Walmart has greatly divested themselves from their uh, almost at this point legendary Chinese um, supply chains. A lot of Vietnam, a lot of India. So they've moved away from the Chinese thing quite a bit. But as we know, there's some tariffs coming on with India because they keep buying Russian oil. So we'll see how that plays out. But here's something to watch. People think all the tariff is going to come through to the consumer. Now, some will for sure.
Mhm.
The some will get eaten by the supplier and fill in the blank country. Some will get eaten by the company, like Walmart, Target, whoever it might be, and some can be eaten by the consumer. But one thing to be
Is that
mindful of,
shrinkflation when you say that, or
say it
is that
again.
a is that when you say eaten by the consumer, you're talking about in higher prices? Because there's
Correct.
in order to
Right.
stabilize prices, we talked
Yes.
about this. There's shrinkflation is also.
The shrinkflation is also a part of it. But if we're buying a Barbie doll made in India instead of China, making Barbie shorter isn't really going to change the price too much.
No.
So, or change anything. But what's going to be interesting to watch is I think you're going to see a lot of companies with supply chains from overseas reporting record revenues. And that's the
Mhm.
way Team Red is going to spin that. Walmart had record revenues, which they did in this case. Well, yeah, when your costs go up because of tariffs, you're going to raise your prices. Therefore, you're going to get record revenues. Now, Team Blue will say, but their net income went down, and they're going to be right as well.
Mhm.
So this is going to be interesting to see how this is spun both politically and in earnings calls. Just something to keep a loose eye on here, guys. Don't have to sit here and go through the whatever it was 200 pages of the Walmart's earning report, unless you're short on Ambien and need sleep, in which
Mhm.
case you can start reading that stuff. So I think we're going to see this across a lot of companies. Target, especially, surprisingly, has a lot of their supply chain still stuck in China. So Target's got some problems, big problems.
Really?
Yeah, they're not doing well. They just replaced their CEO after years of poor earnings, poor financial results, and they replaced him with an insider, which Wall Street did not like because they were looking for some fresh blood to run the place, and their stock went down, I think 7% that day.
Mm.
So yeah, not on a good path. So
I was going to show something real quick. We use terms like shrinkflation, and I still wonder how much people know about that. So here's some examples. If you can see this, well,
yeah,
it's the whole thing here. Uh, those crackers were bought in April. Those are in May.
okay,
Large fry with that to that. 52 fluid ounces to 48.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
here again, let's see, total weight 150 grams to 134. And you could see it everywhere. If you're looking 7.5
Yep.
ounces to 5 ounces, the price stayed the same.
Yep.
So there again is a way to handle that.
It is, and it sneaks up on most people. I think many people are aware of it from a theoretical standpoint, but when they go to the store, they grab a bag of chips,
Mhm.
and
It's
it is
it's the proverbial frog in the boiling water. You just don't see it. So
absolutely,
slow and insidious.
yep, it is, and it's one of those things that just daily life, pulls your attention to other things, right? And then if you have, say, a family of five that you need X amount of food to feed five people, suddenly you're buying two bags of chips instead of one, and it's lasting maybe it's lasting a day or two longer because it is more stuff than the original one bag of chips.
Mhm.
But it doesn't change the fact that more money's going out the door, and that affects the consumer. And we see that with credit card debt. We see that with buy now, pay later being used at Walmart to
Mhm.
pay for food. So when something breaks, and it's going to break at some point, it's going to get sporty.
Yeah.
So this one's from, I never know how to pronounce this one. Kobasi letter. I don't know. Anyway, pretty good follow on X if you're into this stuff. Um, Fed Fed Chair Powell has caved. This is in reference to his Jackson Hole speech. When we get to the bottom part here, this is a quote from that. I geeked out and watched that one. You could watch the market change as he spoke, which I have a philosophical problem with. He's an unelected official, and he can have that kind of power over trillions of dollars with just a few words. I don't really dig that, but it doesn't matter. That's the system we got.
Yeah, not just trillions of dollars, but the entire American economy, and by virtue, the entire world economy.
True.
That's too much power for any one person.
Yep. And so this getaway was this last weekend. They do it in Jackson Hole every August. The next Fed meeting is September 17th, 18th, I believe, right in there. And that's when they're going to make their next decision on what to do with interest rates. So in the past, they've been looking very closely at inflation and the job market. Job market has not been an issue. Job market's been on a tear, as everybody knows, for the last number of years. They've been looking at inflation. Well, suddenly now we've had some changes in the job market and some revisions, and we're going to touch on those from a little different angle here later in the show. But a bunch of jobs got revised down the last 2 months, big revisions. And so now the job market's starting to become a concern. But we have to look at the dichotomy here in that we have CPI. Well, first, let's just go right through this. Meanwhile, we have a PPI inflation. That's producer price index. That's inflation for businesses, if you will, their input stuff. So PPI is at a 3-year high. Now, PPI usually flows through eventually to CPI because businesses have inflation. They pass that on to consumers. Here's the part I kind of got lulled into not realizing just how long this had been going on. CPI inflation has been above the 2% target, which is the Fed's target for inflation, 2% annually. It's been above that target for 53 straight months. That's over 4 years, brother.
Wow.
That's a long time to be above target. And Powell's been wanting to sneak up on that 2%. He doesn't want to undershoot that and cause a recession because he wants to be the soft landing guy, right? So that's okay. This is all fine and dandy. Gee whiz, whatever, Will. Where this matters to us is this last line. Don't own assets, you will be left behind. As inflation continues, the cost of everything goes up. And that means if you own assets, those asset prices go up too. Now, in this case, we're talking, in my parlance, assets, stocks, to an extent, bonds, not so much, real estate, crypto, precious metals, any type of asset, really. Now, when I say any type of asset, cars, no, that's a depreciating asset. However, they will depreciate less in a high inflation environment. So unless you get into very specialized classic cars or something really out there, cars don't appreciate. Okay. So we're not talking about that. But this is from Powell's speech, and I'm just going to go through the highlighted parts here. He said, in the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside. Now, typically, those move in concert. They move together typically, meaning if the job market's going down, inflation's coming down. And if the job market is really strong, inflation is rising. And it'll have the other consequence as well. If inflation is decreasing, usually the job market's decreasing as well. Well, that's not what's happening this time. We're getting the flip of that. And we can talk about, do deportations play into that? Yeah, to some extent they do. Can we also talk about demographics in the United States? For years and years, we've had fewer children. And that's coming through because, it takes 18 years to make an 18-year-old to get out there in the workforce, or at least begin college to work towards that workforce. So this is a weird time. The Fed, usually their dual mandate works together. They can solve one problem with the other. Well, this time they've got inflation that's staying stubbornly high, and a job market that's starting to weaken. And we can talk about how the BLS is incompetent and Trump fired whoever was in charge of that. And we can get into all that. But it doesn't change the fact of the matter that the job market is weakening. We're going to dig into a few numbers in that today.
It's funny you brought up the case of deportations because we have a guy, because of course I run a construction company, but we had this guy that we always subbed out our framing to. Fantastic guy. He ran a crew of perfect framers. They also did masonry for us, which is phenomenal work, better than anything we could get here. So we've kept this guy as a sub for years and years and years. Couldn't get a hold of him. Call. Guess what? And deported.
Yep.
And a whole lot of his crew did. So now we're like, where are we going to get this? But it's having these kind of effects, I think, maybe in some markets more than others.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
A
lot of brain surgeons getting deported, Will, but
what's
not a lot of brain surgeons getting deported,
no.
but a lot of guys in the trades that are really skilled craftsmen.
And that, and beyond the political debate of that, those things have real world effects for everyone. Mm-hmm. Right. And even in areas you may not expect, your milk prices up here in Wisconsin, a lot of illegal aliens on the dairy farms.
Yeah, I didn't know these guys were illegals, because I don't have to, they're a sub. I don't have to ask paperwork. They got a LLC, they've got insurance, they got all the things I need to hire them as a subcontractor. But guess what?
Yep.
They weren't legal.
Yep. So
Mark is on out there in Australia. Good morning, Mark. And we also have another Mark from Ontario, Canada. Good morning, Mark.
All right. We have a quorum of Marks.
A quorum of Marks has been achieved.
So, all right. So we're going to dig into the Wayback Machine here a little bit. This is purchasing power. So this is listed as a consumer price index, which usually we think of as inflation. But here we're looking at the purchasing power of the consumer dollar in the U.S. This chart goes all the way back to pre-1900. Okay. And you'll notice, ignore that vertical line. That just happened to be on there when I did the screenshot of this. But you'll notice my red arrow there, Rich, just post-depression. You'll notice that we know that the economy during that time was obviously going down dramatically, but the purchasing power of the dollar was skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. And that was deflation. Prices were going down. Therefore, the dollar had greater purchasing power, right? Mm-hmm. And we rightfully think of the Depression as a terrible time in our history, specifically economically, and that's correct. However, if you look at it from a standpoint of a person who had dollars, it wasn't that bad a time. Mm-hmm. And in reading the history on it, the folks who had liquidity, the folks who had cash, did just fine during the Depression. Mm-hmm. If you ever watch Cinderella Man, Russell Crowe, boxing, great movie. There's that scene where he walks into downtown New York City, and this family's coming out of the shopping the department store, getting in the car with bags of goods, and the kids are happy and all this sort of stuff. If you had liquidity, that was you during the Depression.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point of this is, we know the purchasing power of the dollar has gone way down since 1913 when the Federal Reserve came into effect. We know these things; they're in front of us all the time. But what we don't often think about, and honestly, I didn't think about before doing show prep on this, is the system has to do that. Mm-hmm. It absolutely has to, because if the purchasing power of our dollar is increasing, the economy is probably doing awful. Yeah, we're going to dig into that a little bit. It's so antithetical to our way of thinking, right? We want our dollar to go farther, but none of us want what's going to bring that on. Right. So if we go to the next slide here, if I remember my order correctly, we can look, we're zooming in a little bit here. Now we're going from 2000 through today. Okay. And you'll notice at each recession, and I know we'll put an asterisk by 2020. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But when the dot-com bubble burst, purchasing power went up. This is the same chart just zoomed in, guys. So this is purchasing power of the US dollar.
Okay.
And you'll notice every time there's a recession, purchasing power goes up.
Is that a
So
feature or a bug? What is that?
yes, because we know that the system is built around 2% inflation. So a 2% decrease in your purchasing power per year is the target of the Federal Reserve. So therefore, when the economy is going to grow when there's inflation, it's going to go up. The numbers are going to go up, and your purchasing power is going to go down year after year, right?
Mhm.
But when there's a recession and prices go down because of slower economic activity, when prices go down, your purchasing power is going up in parity with that. So when people say, I wish my money went further, do
Mhm.
you really? Because this is what it takes to get your dollar to go farther.
Right.
You got to have a recession, but you have to have price decreases. Well, when prices decrease, you get layoffs.
Mhm.
You get layoffs, you get unemployment, right? So it's a weird thing that I never really thought of the flip side of that. We talk a lot about the decrease in the purchasing power of the dollar because of inflation. But when the purchasing power of the dollar is increasing, that's bad times.
Mhm.
We don't really want that. And if we even think back, it's easy even for guys like us that lived through the dot-com bubble and the housing bubble. It's easy to kind of forget the details there, right? But let's think about COVID. That's recent enough we can remember that.
Mhm.
When COVID started, prices started cratering until Stimmy came along, right?
Oh, Stimmy.
Oh, Stimmy came along, and then suddenly prices skyrocketed, and there were supply chain issues there as well. We know about, but initially prices went down because nobody was buying anything. Everybody was scared, right?
Mhm.
So they came along and they pumped money into the system, and they got activity going. The point here is that we can remember this. Now, it happened very quickly because the a it wasn't a normal recession where the economy slowed and these things happened. They shut it off.
Right.
But I think it's a very interesting study because it can we can look at it was a binary thing.
Mhm.
There was an operating economy, then there wasn't. There wasn't even with the housing crash, it took years. I feel like looking back, it happened within a month or two, but it took years
Yeah.
to go even from peak to trough. That was like a year and a half, 2 years.
Mhm.
But looking back on it, we tend to think of it as it's a crash. It was a crash in the housing market, but everything else was a slow motion rolling train wreck.
Mhm.
But COVID happened so quickly. I think it's going to be interesting to study, and I want to do some more research on that for a future show. To Because these things usually happen so slowly that when you go back and study them later, it's almost in a way pointless because it's like, well, did this cause it or did that cause it? Well, COVID's going to be an interesting case study because it happens so quickly and in such a binary fashion.
One of the things that sticks out to me, and you and I think, started doing them right toward the tail end. These shows right toward the tail end of COVID, maybe right
Mhm.
before it. I can't remember.
Yeah, matter of fact, next month is our 5th anniversary.
That's right.
Yay, us.
That's right. I guess what you caught this and some of the data you had pulled back then. It's like, look, man, the STEMI was supposed to go to buy new flat screens or whatever they
Mhm.
wanted to stimulate the economy. In reality, a lot of it, and when I say a lot of it, maybe up to 50% of it went to pay down existing credit card debt.
Mhm.
So that didn't stimulate the economy, did it? I mean, so I
Nope.
think when we study what happened, it's going to be interesting to pull the data because one might make assumptions like, well, they went out and bought the kids new Nikes or whatever, but that is
Well,
not
and
necessarily the
and
case.
and you bring up a great point in that if the memory serves, 47% of the money went to debt service. 47% of the STEMI money went to debt service. The But eventually that got spent, and we see that in credit card balances, right?
Hmm.
Credit card balances went way down when Stimmy was out there, and
Hmm.
now they've gone back to record highs. So this is a great example of why it's so hard to study these things sometimes because it happens on such long lags. So eventually all that Stimmy made it into the economy, because credit card balances went from here down to here, and then over time came back up to here. So
That came up and
eventually
then it
it kept
exceeded.
going as well. Right. But just for the STEMI portion of that, we can make the argument that eventually all got spent.
Good point.
But the lag is so long, it's hard to nail down the cause and effect of specific things.
You know why? Because Americans didn't learn. Like they didn't change their buying habits.
Mm-hmm.
All you did was pay it down and went right back to doing it like the STEMI was going to keep coming.
Yeah.
And for a while, it did keep coming.
It did.
But when they shut it off, it's just the same thing with the student loan.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hold on that for a while.
Yeah.
And did people pay it down when they had an opportunity? Nope.
Nope.
They took the moratorium and went shopping or whatever.
And now it's coming back with a vengeance.
Yeah, man.
While people are already stretched and having a harder time getting pay raises right now.
Yeah, good luck with that. Michael Gentili says, Will is so sentimental. Our good friend Will Parker is on coin number 800. And I got your email, Lima Charlie, brother, and I will get with you on that one. What is this?
So this is, I really debated whether or not to have this in here because it's kind of, it's quite busy. So your blue line is the S&P 500, and this is going from 2020 through current day.
Okay.
The vertical green line there is August 15th, because the way the chart worked out, but August 16th of 2022, the IRA was signed, the Inflation Reduction Act. Was signed by President Biden, then President Biden, who spent a bunch of money to decrease inflation. Okay.
I don't think that's how this works, but okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't think so either, but and it hasn't worked. So anyway, moving on. Your red line here with the green arrow underneath it, that's your M2 supply. That's your money supply. And if we look back, when money supply increases, prices increase, inflation goes up. Okay. The one thing that the politicians do not want is a recession under their watch. And the easiest way to make sure you don't get a recession is keep putting more money into the system. Exactly. So let's take a look at, now the stock market is not the economy. The economy is not the stock market, but this is going to dovetail into the next part of our discussion here. We can see this M2 supply starting in 2020. It skyrockets up towards the middle part of 2020. We know that stock market goes down.
That was all that QE, wasn't it?
This is 2020. So this is STEMI.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So, the stock market goes down because of this is the first half of 2020 here on the left side of the chart. And then the money supply keeps climbing. And then we get to this box I drew where it says negative 24.82% there. That was a stock market drawdown, peak to trough there from 2022 into late 2022. Okay. But the point is, and during that same period of time where you got that negative 4.89%, that was the decrease in the money supply that slightly lagged that. Okay. Now, they don't like that because what happened to the economy in 22 into 23? We had a technical recession. Everything was pulling back. The economy was slowing. Politicians of both colors were scared.
Changed the definition of what a recession was for a while, didn't it? They
did. Yes. They now call that a technical recession because the NBER did not declare an actual recession. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that is the way the system works. Okay. So, but then we signed the Inflation Reduction Act. Now you will notice that your red line starting down in, say, the first quarter of 2022, they can see that coming. They, meaning the politicians, can see that coming. They know what happens when the money supply goes down. Money supply goes down, you get at least a recession, if not more. So we cannot have the money supply go down. But the Federal Reserve is going, nope, we're going to keep doing quantitative tightening and we're going to keep interest rates high. So the other side of that has been discovered, with air quotes, since COVID, is the government, as long as there's demand for U.S. Treasuries, can just keep making their own money too. Doesn't have to come out of the Federal Reserve. And so you get the Inflation Reduction Act. Some of it was money spent, some was tax credits. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. The point is they pump money into the system. And you can see here the money supply starts coming up in 2024. And what's the stock market done since then, brother? boom,
Mhm.
to the upside. So if you watch the money supply, it will lead the stock market. Now, COVID, we put a lot of
Because money
asterisks by
seeks a return. All that money coming in's trying to find a return, is it not?
it. Is not. It is. And whoops, whacked my computer there. And not only that, we're going to talk about where this money flows to, and
Mm.
the oddity that just hit me upside the head like a frying pan about the hypocrisy of Team Blue here.
Mm.
Okay. Now, there's plenty of hypocrisy on Team Red as well, guys. I'm an equal opportunity offender when it comes to economics and politicians because they're
Mhm.
all idiots. Okay.
Mhm.
But this is one of those things where no politician is going to sit there and let this happen on their watch. We see it right now with Trump. That's why he's browbeating Powell to lower rates. It's both sides. Okay. I see
Mhm.
Dr. Fuller is in the house.
I love this comment. He says, "Hello from South Carolina, coin number 1620. And since my workout wasn't depressing enough, I'm here to learn more about the economy." We got Peter on from Rhode Island. Absolutely love Rhode Island. Of course, Gregory is up there as well. Beautiful state. I wish it was more gun friendly. I'll spend more time there. But absolutely love the people of Rhode Island, the food, everything. Great place.
Awesome place up there.
You know, I'll look at this kind of stuff, and you and I were talking in the green room, man. This is something that it's like a little bit of poison works for the short term. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to print money, and man, it's going to do great. This Q, man, we're going to do it, but eventually, it sows the seeds of destruction
It does.
for the whole economy.
It does. And the thing is, it's easy to blame the politicians, whatever stripe you don't like or do like or whatever. But the truth is, it comes back to we the people. We
Mhm.
elected them.
Mhm.
I mean,
I didn't like Jerome Powell, buddy.
well, you're right. You didn't, but you elected the guy who put him in office, which was Trump the first time
Mhm.
around, right? And but to your point, you're absolutely correct. The the other side of this too is, I mean, when was the last time you, Rich Brown, or Alan Kelly, who I see is on, when was the last time any of us voted not to reelect a politician because they spent too much money?
Mm.
I know I never
That's a
have.
damn good question.
We're all hypocrites on this,
Yeah.
right? We all talk a good game, but I
Well,
don't
it's like the
even.
crash, man. Hold on. This is something you and I talked about years ago, but it's so great. You pointed it out to me when I was bitch. Oh, they lock them up, and you're like, "Hey, bro, we all benefited from that on the run up."
Mhm,
You're like, I didn't do any real estate shit. Like, wait, did you have a 401k? Did you have an IRA?
mhm.
Were you in the market at all? If so, you're welcome.
Yep.
And then the crash happened, and you had to eat it. But am I right in saying that? I don't want to misquote you on that one.
No, I say a lot of crap, but yeah, I seem to remember something like
Yeah.
that. But it's true. Whether I said it or somebody else said it, it's absolutely true. We all benefit from this, so we can all, oh, the national debt's this. That's terrible. You got a 401k? You're
Mm-hmm.
welcome.
Yeah.
You got an IRA? You're welcome. You got a home? You're welcome.
Mhm.
And to the start of the show, if you own assets, you're welcome. Because the reason all assets go up is because right now because of money printing. Otherwise, they stay kind of flattish,
Well,
right? And
even
none of us.
gold. Gold is on a tear. Gold
Oh
is up
yeah.
200% in 5 years since we started
Yep.
this. 200% increase.
Absolutely.
But again, I will ask you: what is gold? AU has it gotten better as a metal? They add another electron in there that nobody can see. No, it's because your
No,
dollar went down.
exactly. So we all benefit from it. So
What's Michael say?
it's it says the current financial system has habituated to the false touchstone of the Fed. If I recall correctly, there was a significant Oh my God, Mike, I have an Illinois public school education here, brother. Work with me here. The significant perturbation during Wilson's presidency that self-corrected. You have to educate me on that one, buddy. I really don't know much about Wilson's presidency.
What was under
So
him that the Fed was created, wasn't it?
it was.
I mean, it was an
You were
amendment to
correct.
the Constitution, but at the same time, I believe it
Yeah,
happened under his watch.
I believe you're correct. Yeah, you got to work with me though. But Illinois public school education here, man. Single syllable words,
Michael's the
please.
smartest person I know. So there you go.
I've met your other. Never mind. Anyway, moving on. So when we can see which way this M2 supply is going here to the right of this chart, it's
Yeah.
going up, right?
Yeah.
And this is now we're zooming in on this is I want to make sure and give attribution here. This is of2minds.com. Great blog to read. So he pulls this chart, and I really like the way he did this. This is a Fed chart. This is compensation of employees paid, wages and salaries, distributions to persons. So basically, this is your purchasing power. Okay.
Mhm.
But you will note again that your purchasing power goes up and down as a employee, but you'll also notice which way it's gone since 1970 something.
Mhm.
It's gone down. That's the way the system has to work, because let's think about what the economy was like in the 70s when interest rates were high, right? Your purchasing power was good, right? Yes, inflation was high, but also wages were going up during that time. So if you had a job, you did okay. You didn't do great, okay?
Mhm.
But as soon as interest rates started going down, meaning money got cheaper, what happened to your purchasing power? It
Mhm.
was eroded significantly. What happened to asset value since really 1980, but really started in mid 70s, late 70s, but really went on steroids since 1980? Asset prices have gone through the roof because the dollar has become worth less.
Mhm.
It's been a long 45-year slide.
Yeah.
So
It's
all
not
that
worthless yet, but it's worth less.
correct. It is it
So,
is worth a lot less. Um, something like, what was it? Gosh, I just read this stat. I may butcher this. Something like 70%, 60%, 80% of the money, US dollars in existence right now were created since 2020.
yeah.
Yeah,
Ain't that
it's a
tough?
crazy stat. So, but the point here, so what I'm driving at here is assets versus wages.
Mhm.
And this is we're going to bring this back around to our self-defense stuff, because this is affecting, and is I think is going to affect society even more going forward as we near the end of this cycle. And this
Mhm.
cycle, I'm not saying by the end of the year, I'm talking more into the decade, into the next decade. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is going to be a long, slow process. All right. Okay.
Speaking of slow processes,
Slow process. So, constant decrease in purchasing power drives wealth to asset owners. And we're going to look first at the big picture, and like the previous stuff, we're going to dig down into smaller chunks of this. This goes back to just before 1990. Your solid blue line here is total assets held by the top 1%. Team Blue's got a
does it
point.
does that also drive income inequality
Absolutely, it does.
and all the negative things that
Yep,
unfortunately are associated with that,
it does. And this
including
is where
civil
team,
unrest and all the
yep,
other things that, from a self defense perspective, we got to worry about.
absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
Think about Occupy Wall Street. What were they
Yes.
angry about?
Yeah.
Top 1%. Okay.
Mhm.
And, at the time I was just as whatever, occupy a desk, whatever. But in looking back on it, they did have a point to an extent. And Team Blue has a point here too about the top 1%, about all this migrating to the top.
Mhm.
They're correct. However, we're going to go to part B on that here as well. Your dotted line here is total assets held by the bottom 50%. Pretty much flat. Now, in fairness to this, the bottom 50% also includes people like my own children.
Mhm.
My oldest just got married, just started, just purchased their first home, did all this stuff. They're in the bottom 50%, but they're
Mhm.
also just getting started.
Right.
So as they move up, they move out of the bottom 50%.
Mhm.
And then this chart is no longer them, right? And same thing with my twins are headed off to college this week. We become empty nesters. And right now they're also in the bottom 50%. And of course, my hope is that investing in their education and their future, no matter which child it is, will come back to me as a very good nursing home someday. Okay.
But the gap is widening, I think, is the point.
Absolutely, it is. So the other point I was trying to make there, maybe I didn't make it well, was that we do get movement out of the bottom 50%.
Well, yeah, because it doesn't
Okay.
matter where you start; it's where you end up. And
Exactly.
if you're
Now,
purchasing assets, that can get you out. If you don't purchase assets and you buy DoorDash and shit,
Bingo.
buy now, pay later, you will remain forever locked in that bottom 50%.
Yep, absolutely. And that's where, so it's not just invest your money wisely. To an extent, it's just invest your money.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom 50% typically doesn't have the income to substantially invest. And what they do with the windfall from Stimmy, either put it towards debt reduction, which we know came back up. We see that in credit card balances, or they spent it.
Mm-hmm.
But now here's the weird part. What does the economy need them to do with that money? They need them to
Buy
spend.
goods, right?
Yeah. If they save it, then might as well not create the Stimmy,
That's right.
right? So, but what did people with excess cash do with Stimmy checks?
Assets.
They bought assets.
Yeah.
And that's why all asset markets went up. Every single one of them. You can't find one that did not go up over a period of time with the Stimmy stuff.
Well, Alan's got a good point. And did any of them purchase wisely? So let's break those Stimmy things down again. Most people paid off existing credit card debt, or they went out and bought new Nikes or a flat screen or something else. Most people did not buy assets with them unless you were already flush. Dr. Gordon Botson is on. Good morning, Dr. Botson. Glad to have you on the show.
All right. So you're talking about money printer go burr earlier. I forgot I changed the graphic on this one. This is Powell with his, those t-shirt launchers at like football games and stuff. Here's his money launcher. Okay. So let's take a look at this. So this chart goes from 1990 to 2025, we'll say it goes to. Okay. If we look at the top 1% up there, in 1990, they held 43% of the wealth. Now it's 51%. Which way did the money migrate over what? 35 years. Sorry, math in public, right? It migrated to the top. And to the point, it migrated to asset holders. Yes, they hold more assets, therefore they get more of the incoming money, right? You can see our next 9% stayed pretty steady there. Actually, perfectly steady, 36% to 36.
The next 9% is not the middle class, folks.
Correct. You're still talking about the top 10%.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, I should have looked the numbers up. I apologize. What it takes to be in the top 10% for assets. I couldn't tell you.
$1 million income a year or something like that. Or
yeah, it's I really can't remember.
Yeah, if somebody could look it up and throw it in the comments, that'd be fantastic. But I would venture a guess, Will, that this is and this is really a problem for our country, the shrinking middle class, because that's what I'm seeing here.
Yes, that's absolutely what you're seeing. Okay, so now you got top 1%, next 9% there. So you've got what? 87% of assets are held by the top 10%. Okay, the next 40%. So now we're going from the top down to 50%, right? Hold 99% of assets.
Wow.
The bottom 50% have held 1% of the assets all the way through.
Some of that holds 1% of the assets. Say that again.
Bottom 50% of people hold 1% of the assets.
Holy cow.
And if your purchasing power is decreasing and wages in the long term never keep up with inflation, and you don't own assets to offset that decrease in purchasing power, you're not getting ahead.
No.
Period. Dot end. That's all there is to it. It's the way the system works. Okay. So let's go back to our COVID thing here on the yellow here. So what happened during COVID? First, you had an initial shock with a large decrease in purchasing power caused by excessive easing of monetary policy and fiscal loosening. Okay. Money printer went burr. So if we think back to that time when everything shut down, when you and I first started talking about stuff, everything shut down and your purchasing power went up significantly because all businesses' sales started dropping. So they started dropping prices to try and generate some revenue, right? Well, that was very short-lived. I mean, we're talking maybe a month, maybe even just a matter of a couple of weeks before they started printing money in one way, shape, or form, right? And it wasn't just the money they printed. It was also, to your point earlier, it was, you know what, don't worry about paying those student loans. Well, that had the equivalent effect of giving people a pay raise, right? They had more money to spend. And what did they do? They spent it. And then,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I looked it up. To be in the top 10% of earners in the U.S. A household needs an annual income of at least 169,000 as of 2021 tax data. However, that threshold varies obviously from location to location. Some locations as high as 250,000.
Yeah.
To be in the top 1%, you need to make about 787,000.
Yep. So well, as long as you got your Google machine fired up there, what's it take to be in the say top 10% for net wealth?
Net wealth.
Because that's what we're looking at here with this chart.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
wealth.
Google Foo here. To be in the top 10% net wealth in the United States, you need a minimum net worth of approximately 1.9 million to 1.94,
So basically, got to have $2 million,
which is assets.
right? And that's bear in mind net wealth and so that'll include home equity, right? I mean, in some places that's if you bought some time ago, it's pretty easy to tag on some serious cash there in certain markets.
If you have a bungalow in Southern California, you're probably in the
Right.
top 10% just by
The problem there is
virtue
how do you tap that?
property,
Right.
right?
Right. So, but the point is to your point. Thanks for looking that up, brother. Is when they start printing money, you have to own assets. Your wages will not keep up because to get your pay raise, they have to win. Basically, the boss goes and looks at inflation and looks at their own pricing power within that business and says, "We can afford to give you this much of a raise." Well, that's always backwards looking.
Mm-hmm.
Assets are forward looking, especially the stock market. Housing market's more real time, right? But in the long run, those asset prices go up with it. Look what's happened since 2020. And you go back all the way to 1913. What's happened to every asset price on a long enough timeline? It's gone up.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is causing and is going to continue to cause problems for the country. And let's face it, there's a reason. What's his name? Zohan Man. What the guy running for mayor in New York City, right? So New York City, yeah, you can own a condo there. You can own those things, but there's a lot of renting that happens there. Well, those people don't own assets,
Yep.
and the rent just keeps going up and up and up. Hence his popularity, right? So there's a lot that goes into the popularity of people like him. It certainly is not his ability to bench press. If you saw that video,
No, oh my God.
he was at
Weakest
this.
adult
I
male
forget
I've
what
ever
it
seen.
was over the weekend. He was at this thing in New York City, and they had a bench press set up with a whole 135 pounds on it. I'll give him one rep, but certainly the second rep he had assistance on. There was no third rep. Yeah.
Pathetic.
So easy to make fun of somebody like that for that. But the reality is the reason he's popular is because of these things we're seeing right here.
Remember the rent's too damn high party?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
hilarious.
Yeah, that guy was hilarious.
Whew.
So, all right. So this is from that same of two minds. This is one of their charts they put together here. This is the base chart here is from the Fed again from 1990 to current day. Look in the upper left here. NASDAQ up 9.3 times, not 9.3% annually. It's up 9.3 times since
930%.
Yeah. Corporate profits up 6.2x. Net worth of the top 1% up 5x. Net worth of the 90 to 99%, so the rest of the 10%, up 3.9x. Net worth of the 50th percentile to the 90th percentile up 3.2x. Net worth of the bottom 50% up 3x, but as you remember looking at that chart, you basically can't see it, right? And housing index up 3x. So in other words, own assets. So this is breaking this down and probably belaboring the point a little bit, but this is we're going to next get into what's going to happen when the next crisis hits. And there will be a next crisis, whatever form that takes. Kind of doesn't matter what form it takes for this bigger picture discussion.
Well, I think what's interesting about this, you can do some pontificating and prognosticating based on this data as to potentially when the next crisis is going to come and maybe in what fashion it's going to come. But it's always the black swan events that really scare the crap out of me and you and probably the markets
Hmm.
because there's no way to predict it. And in the book, The Black Swan, if you're not familiar with that term, thank you to the 11 folks watching us live. Um, the one that made the most sense to me, having read that book, was when he talked about a black swan event for the turkey. He hatches, and the first face to greet him is this gentle looking farmer. The farmer shows up to feed him every day, water him every day, make sure that he's got plenty of shade and places to walk around. Everything's hunky dory. And then one day out of the blue, he picks him up, chops his head off.
Hmm.
Didn't see that one coming
Yeah.
because he had no idea that what his purpose was. I mean, so
Right.
what is going to be the black swan event that none of us can predict? I couldn't tell you, but there's certainly so many things we can see coming.
Yeah. And it's a matter of there's so many outside forces. People will say, oh, it's going to be a war with China, or it's going to be the national debt, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that. I used to pay a lot of attention to that stuff until I realized that truly a black swan event, as you're referring to it, is unknowable, right? But there's gray swans. There's things we can see coming, like that list we just talked about, right?
Right.
But which one, how? I gave up on trying to figure out the whys, and it's like, how can I prepare for all of them?
Exactly. And the
Right.
Red Cross, we call that all hazards preparedness.
Right. And if we look at it, really, in the end, they all have the same thing that happens, right?
Mhm.
There's an initial shock, right? So then asset prices go down, generally speaking. So how can you be protected for that?
And
We're
how
going to
can you
talk about
exploit it when it does happen?
exactly. And then do you have dry powder to buy low? And if you don't, well, then the knowledge really didn't do you any good. And as long as they print money again and get things going, you'll be okay. Look at COVID. Good friend of mine. We were talking, I'm going to say it must have been March, April of COVID timeframe. And he's like, I decided to just ride it out. He's done just fine.
Mhm.
Right. Um, there were some sleepless nights in there, I'm sure, when he was down, 40%,
Yeah.
but he's also a little bit younger than me. So whatever. Okay. Um, what's Dr. Fuller have to say? I think it's very, very astute comment.
Dr. Fuller, my internal term for an all hazards event is zombie apocalypse. What catastrophe without a bit of whimsy?
Yeah. Remember, headshots are key. Watch
Mhm.
that documentary, The Walking Dead. It'll teach you everything you need to know.
There
Okay.
we go.
Um, but to Dr. Fuller's point, yeah, and called the zombie apocalypse, call it, whatever you want to call it, but there's certain things you need. It goes back to our prepper roots, right? Food storage, water purification,
Mm.
and these are the worst case scenario things, right, guys? But if you store 3 months worth of food, right? Well, that's part of your savings, right?
Correct.
And what are food prices doing? Going up,
Exactly.
right? And I do that. We've got food storage, and basically we only buy stuff that's on sale. That
Mhm.
saves us money, right? So this is all part. It all plays into it. So let's talk about this a little bit, zooming in on these numbers that of Two Minds came up with here. So we've got a long enough timeline here to look at. We got 35 years of data here since 1990 to look at for this. We've talked a lot. Own assets, right? Which assets? All of them, because you really don't know what's going to do good. Okay, I mean, let's face it. I know you're a gold guy. I'm a gold guy too, not as much as you. Okay, I have a tinfoil hat, not a gold foil hat like you. Okay, but the 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 point is, gold was not a good return on investment for a lot of years,
Mhm.
right? So it's having its day right now. Okay. We can talk about, I don't know, the NASDAQ from the dot-com bubble. It was from the dot-com bubble in 2000 to get back to even money. It was 2013. Granted, it got very close in 2006, but it didn't quite get there. But even if it did get there in 2006 and went back down, it was 2013 before you went back up again. A lot of money printing caused that because they didn't print money after the dot-com bubble. They just lowered rates and let the market do its thing, right? So NASDAQ, you got the S&P, you got Walmart stock where I started this at. Okay. Full disclosure, I own Walmart stock. Okay. But the the point is own some sort of an asset, whatever that is. I'd start with your own home, right? That way, because otherwise rent is 100% interest.
Mhm.
Okay. And as a past and planning to be future landlord, thank you for the 100% interest. Okay.
Mhm.
What's Alan Kelly say there?
Food, water, fuel, ammo, more and more ammo. I'll tell you right now, I'm really, I got to say, I'm kind of disappointed in the gun community. I'm just going to go ahead and say it
Mm-hmm.
because right now, ammo prices are rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
When we were terrified that Trump may not get in and all these ammunition manufacturers were just printing it as fast as they could,
Yep.
now they're sitting on a pile of ammo and prices are rock bottom because people aren't buying. I hear this from a lot of folks in the industry that they're not selling,
Yeah.
like they have been. So it's like I think we're taking our eye off the prize now that we have a Republican in office.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about it. Guys, the pendulum swings both ways. So
Yes, it
to
does.
Alan Kelly's point, buy it right now while it's dirt cheap. It ain't been
Yep.
this cheap in forever. So
Yep.
take advantage of it while we can.
Absolutely. And if it takes you, let's just say you burn, I don't know, 1,000 rounds a year, keeping your skills up, buy
Hmm.
10,000 rounds. You got 10 years worth of practice ammo.
Yeah.
Keep it in a cool, dry place, all that sort of stuff. It'll last, right?
Yeah.
And to Gerald's point, guns aren't selling either, right? I
Mm-mm.
can remember the panic when Obama got elected. You couldn't find an AR-15 to save your life, right?
Nope.
And then, and this is why I would never want to invest in hashtag not financial advice. I'd never want to invest in a gun manufacturer. You want to talk about an up and down business that's
Feast
completely
famine,
out of
man.
your control. Oh,
Mm.
it's insane. So, so the so what counts as an asset in my mind, and I look at it a little different than most, it's something not liquid. It can be a home, it can be a stock. And yes, I know stocks are typically considered liquid because I can sell them at any time, but they're not liquid money sitting, say, in a savings account or under the mattress.
Mhm.
Okay. They're in something that is denominated in that currency or can be denominated in that currency that is going to move at least inverse over enough long enough period of time, inverse to the value of that currency. So the and this is let's think back on the COVID thing. Is that how that works?
What's that?
Huh. It says don't wait until the plane is crashing to pack your parachute. Hmm. Interesting. I'm gonna have to think on that one. Um
Yeah.
the
Well, I don't.
yeah, weird. That wasn't any of the books.
Do you
Huh.
carry a parachute to work with you? Just out of curiosity.
No, do not. So um the so let's think about we can look at the housing crisis and we can also look at COVID. Let's talk about COVID. It's the same thing, and we remember it better because
Hmm.
it's closer. There's an initial shock, and then there's panic. Prices go down, markets go down, right? And then there's money printing.
Hmm.
And when the money printing happens, that's when asset prices typically, very, very generally speaking, have bottomed because that money is going to find its way into assets. Let's think about COVID for a second. All this money got printed, as you and I talked about, basically half the money got spent on debt reduction, partially because there was nothing to spend money on for a very short period of time there, right? And then people spent money. Now, this is where I have a problem with Team Blue, is they will say the lower income folks, they need this stimmy. Okay. Typically speaking, being very stereotypical here, okay? Those folks are not going to buy assets with that stimmy money. They're going to go spend that money. Where does that money end up at?
And assets that people purchase.
In a long enough timeline, when you follow that dollar, that $100
Hmm.
bill through that, they go spend it at Amazon.
Hmm.
Amazon's revenues go up. Amazon's profits go up. Amazon's stock goes up. And the
Hmm.
people who bought Amazon stock or are part of that supply chain who own those assets make money. So when they meaning the government have these stimmy programs, who does it ultimately, on a long enough timeline here, who does it ultimately benefit?
Asset holders.
Asset holders. So are they, and then that drives inflation, which hurts the lower end more than the upper end, because guys like you and I that have assets, when the inflation hit, well, these prices are ridiculous. Yeah, go ahead and buy it. Right?
It's
These are
coming back to me
401ks up,
eventually.
our IRAs up, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, this really sucks, but yeah, whatever. This other stuff's gone up in value, so I feel pretty good about spending this extra money. But the lower end doesn't have that option because they don't own the assets. This will continue the K-shaped economy. They talk about the K-shaped recovery with COVID, but really we have a K-shaped society developing here, right? And really the whole everything else was to lead up to this part, and this is where revolutions come in. No joke, guys. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be over the top here. Think about the whole Occupy Wall Street thing. Things were less unequal then. Look at it
Right.
now, right? And then what's going to happen when the next crisis hits? COVID, housing crisis first, then COVID trains society. They'll print money. They'll get us out of this. But they don't see the downline effects. I remember you and I, brother, talking about when they started the stimmy checks, we're like, inflation's coming.
Hmm.
And people whom I know and love said, 3 months later, there's no inflation.
Hmm.
Well, the lag is so long that by then the news cycle blames fill in the blank bad guy on the other side of their target market.
And when it came, what were we told?
Transitory.
Transitory.
Right.
Transitory.
Right.
Well,
Exactly. Which
let
is
me ask you a question, because you got me thinking. So, what if the next crisis is handled the way they did the .com and they don't print money?
I
Because
would bet on a severe recession bordering on a depression.
this, that was 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, you think there's ever a chance where they could go back to something like that again?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
really don't. I
Now
mean,
that they got the money printer thing.
if we think about that, let's say somebody was born in 2000, they're obviously 25 years old now.
Uh,
Their entire lives, and you can even go back a little before that, to be old enough to understand what was happening. That's been the response to everything: print money,
mhm.
right? That
George Bush
and
did it.
yeah, absolutely did. And as we like to berate him for, what do you say? You want to do something patriotic? Go to the mall.
Exactly. Pissed me off.
And let's face it, he was right.
As a Marine on recruiting duty, struggling to get people to go fight for our country, that pissed me off because I'm like,
Yeah, and I
they need to
totally
go
get
to
it. But just
recruiting.
speaking strictly from an economic standpoint, in an economy that is 70% consumerism,
He's not
he
wrong.
was right.
Yeah.
Okay, we can have philosophical problems with that and all these things, but he was right. Okay, so I really don't see a scenario where the populace is going to elect anybody that says, nope, you got to eat it. I don't see that.
Yeah.
And you can look at the rise of, this guy in New York City, and there's a guy in Minneapolis apparently who's very socialist. I haven't followed it closely at all,
The
but this
Somali.
is the trend, right?
Mhm.
And look around the world. European stock market has crushed the U.S. stock market in the last 6 months to a year.
Mhm.
Why? They lowered rates before us. So they're being rewarded for that. Anybody who invested in European stocks is being rewarded for that because it's decreasing the value of the euro, driving their inflation up, right? And asset prices go up. So it's just
Well,
the way it is.
J Dog is out of here next year anyway, right?
Yep,
And
May 15th, I believe.
yeah, and I'm still not. I'm surprised we're not seeing more of the people who are getting ready to kiss the ring and get the job. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not seeing it as much on the news as I thought I would.
And I'm wondering if the bond market scared Trump a little bit on that because Trump was really talking about having basically a shadow Fed chairman there.
Mhm.
Um, the So I'm wondering if the bond market pushed back enough to get Trump to back off that because that's in my theory, and I didn't come up with this, but in my observation, I find it to be true. Trump's watching the bond market. He needs rates lower so the so we can refinance the national debt is what it
Mm.
comes down to. Because team red, team blue, I really don't care. anymore when it comes to politics. Yellen really screwed up during COVID when rates were zero.
Mhm.
She could have refinanced the entirety as it rolled over, the entirety of the national debt at basically 0% on the long bond. She could have gone out 30 years. There were people pushing her to start issuing 50-year bonds at
Right.
nearly 0%, and they didn't do it. And that was a
Missed opportunity, buddy.
big mistake.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but let's also think about, from ourselves, it, I don't like to go back and second guess myself too much, okay? Because you can only know what you can know, but if we don't go back and look at it, we can't do better next time,
That's
right?
right.
So let's kind of delve into that a little bit here with you bringing this slide up. So so volatility. This if we look at the asset markets around COVID, very volatile, right? Went down
Mhm.
40% ish in just a few months and then skyrocketed back up. The Let's get away from the whys. We've talked about the whys, the money printing, all that stuff. It happened.
Yeah, but
Okay.
what skyrocketed? Technology, right?
Mhm.
Retail, any kind of software stuff.
Yep.
And it was just like you talked about, what was it last week, Will? That comprises like 7
About
or 8 of the top 10 of the NASDAQ.
Yep. Actually, 9 of the top 10. Number 10 is
9. There we
Berkshire
go.
Hathaway. 9 of the
Yeah.
top 10. Yep. So,
And what
and, and,
hurts,
and so, back to our Walmart thing. I just looked this up this morning. Again, I own Walmart stock. Not that anything I say is going to move Walmart stock, but just full disclosure, I looked it up. Walmart's a decent sized company. They're not Nvidia or anything like that, but they're 1.33% of the S&P 500.
Mm,
The largest grocer is that far down on the S&P 500.
hmm
So they're probably, probably in the 400s on the ranking of the 500. Okay. That just tells you how powerful the technology companies have become. And to your point, 9 of the top 10 stocks in the S&P 500 are tech companies. That's a lot of concentration, right?
hmm
So let's talk about the volatility. Volatility is just how volatile the market is, how much it's moving up and down, not whether it's trending upward or downward. It can be very volatile and go sideways. Okay. And but this volatility is the price, if you will, that we pay for market returns. Okay. If you want stability, you're not going to keep up with inflation. So if you can, put all your money into something very stable, you're going to lose purchasing power. That's just all there is to it.
That's a fact.
Okay. It sucks.
Like having a
Volatility
savings
is not
account. You want
fun.
stability? Put your money in a savings account, earning
Exactly.
0.0017 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, right now you'll do better than that, but you're still losing purchasing power.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. So
Losing money.
yeah. So you got to put up with that volatility if you want a chance to keep up with inflation. If you look at it day to day, week to week, you'll drive yourself crazy.
hmm
Okay. I go a little further. I have been known to look at it minute to minute.
Yeah.
Okay. But I trade very actively as well, guys. Okay. So
Would you say roughly 40 trades a day? Is that accurate?
I've got myself down to maybe 15 a day now.
Okay.
So I've pared that back considerably. At my peak, it was sometimes 60 to 70 a day.
Wow.
So, but the time just got too much. So, and let's face it, as long as, and part of it was I became more educated. I got smarter, if you will, because I realized that as long as I keep printing money, kind of doesn't matter.
Mm,
Right. So that's where I think this knowledge comes in is, when the market, if the market, let's say something happens next week, market goes down 20%. They're going to do something.
oh, yeah.
And the answer is going to be print more money, and then you ride the volatility. Okay. So, but as a guy who wants to maximize this, what I want to know is there anything we can look at to predict this stuff? And I say predict, I should have put big air quote fingers around this. Okay.
Mhm.
Nobody can predict it. I'm not claiming to be able to predict it. Anybody who claims they can predict it is trying to sell you something. Okay. So, what I want to know now in my own research is there a reliable, again, here, air quotes. Okay. Is there a reliable indicator to show the top of the market? And this is the federal funds effective rate, the interest rate that old J Dog talks about at the Federal Reserve meetings. And this chart goes back to 1980. and we can see at the red arrows there, interest rates go up. And what happens after red arrow? What happens after interest rate goes up? We get a gray bar. And gray bar is a recession.
That's right.
Okay. And then what happens during the recession? Rates drop.
Mm-hmm.
So rates peak. And if you look at this carefully, you'll see rates peak and then rates start down. Then the recession happens.
Mm-hmm.
So
that is true. That's subtle, but yes.
So they keep running rates up, and then they're looking at indicators like jobs market right now and go, we got a problem. And so they're trying to get in front of it by lowering rates, and then the recession happens. We can look at 90, the dot-com bubble, the housing bubble in particular. And you see rates went to zero and stayed there forever, right?
Yeah.
Rates started going up prior to COVID. Not saying the rates going up caused the COVID recession. COVID caused that, okay? But it was going there. And you'll remember Trump and J-Dog having at it when Trump wanted him to lower rates back then. And you'll notice that Powell started to capitulate there. And he's made it very clear he ain't doing that again, okay? And you'll also notice over here in 2025 where I've got the question mark, rates are coming down. And last Friday, Powell talked about rates coming down more in the September meeting. So is this history going to hold true? I don't know. But
we got 45 years of it. Seems to be pretty clear to me.
You know what? I know which way I'm positioning. Hashtag not financial advice, right? But it hold. Now let's talk about let's go back to our scenario, right? So what happens when the recession hits? They print money. Right.
We got Trump in office, so I would submit that might be a little bit more of a wild card. Or am I overthinking?
I don't know. I don't think honestly, I don't think Trump's got the cojones to not do it.
Mm.
And here's why. Timeline. So if a recession
midterms,
there's midterms, and this is Trump's second term.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have a chance to be in there long enough for it to pay off if he had another 4 years after this. Right. So I don't know if he's, I mean, look at how he's pushing Powell to lower rates. Right. So I don't know if Trump's got the guts to ride one out and be like, you know what, we're going to let Team Blue take everything over, not only in the midterms, but in the 2020 elections, and have his legacy be, he drove us into a massive recession. I don't think he's got that.
So Powell is out in May of 2026. Okay. Just about the time that all the folks head home to go run their campaigns for re-election. What's the likelihood of him coming in there and doing some drastic rate dropping, since Powell, let's presume he's not going to do that?
Okay. So to flesh that out a little more, I agree. Powell probably isn't going to go. He'll do some, I think. I think September is going to be a 25 basis point cut, quarter point, maybe another 2 next year before he leaves, maybe, depending on what factors come in. Prior to that, we'll know who the next Fed chairman is going to be. To that point, no president ever puts anybody in there that isn't going to do what they want. Right. So you'll hear people, this person is a sycophant to Trump. Yeah, well, when Obama put in whoever it was the same thing. Okay, so get past the political noise when that happens. Okay. Trump wants lower rates. Whoever goes in there is going to be very dovish, meaning they're going to want to lower rates and be stimulative. Right. So that means get rid of quantitative tightening, which is still ongoing. And will they get to QE? I don't think so without some sort of shock, but they'll definitely get to lower rates. Okay. So that, I think that's all but a given. Right. So when rates get lowered, that's going to stimulate the economy. It's also going to stimulate inflation. But, guys, you've also got midterms coming up, and they need some good numbers to run on in the midterms. And if you start doing that in May, June, you'll start to see that before the midterms occur.
Exactly. So I think it bodes well for Team Red.
So, the one thing I would be looking at very closely, again, ad nauseum, not financial advice. Look at bonds. Look at your bond funds. because lower rates means higher bond prices. So
Mm,
if
mm.
a person truly believes that scenario we just laid out, bonds can only go one direction. The
Great
same
point.
way when inflation started taking off, I shorted bonds. Because rates going up means bonds going down. They had to raise rates when inflation started taking off. So I shorted bonds and did
Mm.
very well with that because there was no choice. They had to raise rates. That drives bond prices down. And for 3 years, it worked really, really good.
What
So
kind
I
of
wrote,
returns were you getting, if you don't mind?
well, I was buying, I don't want to say the ticker only because I can't remember for sure what it is off the top of my head, but it's an ETF that triple shorts the bond.
Mm.
So it was 22, 24% a year.
Damn,
Yeah.
that's
There's some
great.
volatility with that, and it's a triple short, so you get option decay, you get all these other factors that play into
Mhm.
that. It did very well. Matter of fact, give me just a moment here, and I will open another tab here on the Google machine, and if I can get rid of the pop-ups here, that would be a good thing. Tango Mike Victor, and it did very well for me. Now you got it had to trade that because it's quite volatile. You couldn't just buy and hold that. So, all right. So this one, I'm going to push back a little bit on you, brother. So,
What you got?
last week, right at the end of the show, we were talking about the hedges I have on that were going to go up substantially if the market goes down,
Mm-hmm.
and you spoke about in said I hope you make a lot of money, but you seemed a little uneasy about that sort of philosophy, right? And that's fair. That's fine. So let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
how's that any different than owning gold?
No, you're right. You're right.
But
I'm a
here's the
hypocrite.
thing, and it's a psychological thing, and I thought about it quite a bit, just from a psychology standpoint.
Mhm.
Is shorting has a bad rap
Mhm.
because you're hoping the market's going to go down.
Mhm.
Well, technically, yeah. If I'm shorting something, yeah, I hope it goes down. That's true. Okay. However, buying something else, let's say somebody buys a 60-40 portfolio. They have bonds. When do bonds go up? When recessions happen,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So to the point, we all do it.
Yeah.
But the market, the
Gold is a hedge
advisors,
against the dollar. I mean, you're absolutely
yeah.
right. If you can't
So
understand what he's saying, yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So you know, and I completely get it. And I used to subscribe to the same thing. These short sellers are nasty and terrible and blah blah blah. And then I became one. Um,
Hmm.
the It's a high risk game if you think about doing it. Okay, there's a lot of people who have gone bankrupt trying to short stuff. Um, but we all do it. If a person owns assets, you're short the dollar,
That's right.
right? So you're short the country. Or as one guy put it to me, I was talking with, he accused me of being unpatriotic because at that time I was short the Nasdaq.
Mm.
Yeah, my response was unkind. Um,
Well, no, I mean, take the word hedge out and say
mhm,
short.
yeah,
Because I would, using my Rich Brown semantics, I would say, well, my gold purchases are hedged against the dollar. Okay, Rich, told me you just shorted the American
yeah.
dollar. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Well, and if you think about it, if a person buys a home, they're shorting the
Yeah.
dollar. That's
Hmm.
part of the reason the asset goes up in value, right? A good
Hmm.
chunk of it, right?
Good
But we
point.
don't think about it that way and in fairness to you and anyone else, that's not the way we're trained to think about it,
Hmm.
right? You buy a home because they go up in value. They always go up in value. Why? Did the lumber become really worth more? Right?
Yeah,
Did we didn't build a house with sequoia trees, right? So, you know, the it's because you're shorting the dollar. So What's this one say,
Ah,
brother? I like
I
this.
love this one. I read it before when I was just looking over the slides. If you hang around 5 confident people, you will be the 6th. If you hang around 5 intelligent people, you will be the 6th. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you will be the 6th. If you hang around 5 idiots, you will be the 6th. Love that. Very simple.
Yep. And that's so much of it, right?
Mhm.
You see the stuff out there, sit at the table with winners. Conversation is different,
That's right.
right? And I don't know if I sit with the winners. I sit with people I like and love.
Mhm.
But I go sit at some other tables, so to speak, sometimes, and the conversations are different. And that's not necessarily wrong. They seem to be enjoying their lives. That's awesome. Good for them, right? But if we want to provide and protect for our families, need to be around people who are doing certain things.
I 100% agree with you, my
So,
friend. You are
all right.
absolutely right. Another fantastic show, my brother Will.
Thank you, sir. Very kind of you to say. How about you take us out this week?
Fantastic. Guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, never forget the fight is coming. You ready?